Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Son of a Blitch podcast. I'm your host, George Blitch, and I am here with a special treat. I had a wonderful conversation with Lance Lewis. You guys might know him by his company, Tagged Out Kitchen. He is a wild game chef and just a phenomenal one at that. He basically kind of talks about his idea of taking things from field to table. He has a lot of clients that he's worked with who will, they'll have a hunt and he'll go out there and maybe someone takes an animal and he's like talking about, okay, once it hits the ground, what do you do? And then how are you butchering it? How are you preparing this meat? What are you saving these for? And then giving the recipes and kind of just walking you through A to Z. He works with a lot of different organizations, talks about that. Some of the different people he goes out and does these demonstrations with Tagged Out Kitchen. And he's had some amazing wild game dinners that he's prepared. Some of my friends have gone to. Wasn't able to make the last one there in Denver, but hopefully the next one, Meg and I will make it out to. But, I got to see some of the recipes that he had on there and just, oh man, some phenomenal dishes. Really looking forward to going and learning more about that in person someday, and highly suggest you guys look into that at taggedoutkitchen.com. We covered all sorts of bases. He gave us a bunch of recipes for different types of wild game. Obviously, being in hunting season right now, we talk a lot about that. And he also talked about the buffalo, the bison that he ended up butchering recently. It was over 2,000 pounds. And he talked about, what do you do? How do you get an animal like that into an area that you can go ahead and butcher? And man, it was an incredible conversation with that. We talk about all sorts of fun stuff. Lance is just a really great guy, great energy, and has so much knowledge to share about cooking, about wild game. And I just think you guys are really going to enjoy this. Had a wonderful conversation. So without further ado, here is the podcast with Lance Lewis with Tagged Out Kitchen. Enjoy. Hey, Lance, how you doing today, man?
Doing great, George. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I'm excited to chat about all the different things you got going on. And, I figured best way to start is always at the beginning. Will you please walk me through your introduction to the outdoor world, maybe some of your mentors and who kind of got you into your hunting and then cooking, lifestyle, and just kind of maybe give me the very beginning and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I guess the very beginning would be growing up in South Louisiana. We were a hunting family. My dad was a member of a hunting camp. We had really long hunting seasons for big game. So from a very early age, I think I got my first deer when I was like 9 or 10.
Nice.
And it came from my dad putting me on a 2x4 up in a tree with a 20 gauge shotgun, and and it was the 80s. We let it roll.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then I did that up until the time I left for the military. During my time in the military, I wasn't really able to hunt. And once I got out of the military, I started working, got a job out here in Colorado, and moved out here 23 years ago. And of course, once I moved to Colorado, I had to pick up hunting again.
Yes.
And I've been Western hunting now for 20 some odd years, and I try to get out and hunt anywhere else I can get out and hunt in the process. So, I've that Western hunting lifestyle really kind of relit a spark, and I really just, it brings back fond memories of being a kid, and also new adventures as an adult. So
when was that a big pivotal change going from Louisiana to, Western big game and run around the mountains and stuff for you? Is that something that was easy for you to kind of acclimate to that new environment, or was just like, was there some challenges involved with that?
Oh no, it was huge challenges. First and foremost was just learning to shoot out west.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to most Eastern hunters, if you say anything over 100 yards, it's like, that's far.
That's long distance. 200 yards.
Yeah. But you get out west, and even the plains are massive. If you can't shoot 300 yards, you can't shoot a yard, basically, if you're out on the plains.
Sure.
Same with the mountains. I mean, you need to be comfortable with taking those longer cross canyon shots because you've already hiked 2 days to get to where you're hunting. And and if your comfort zone's 200 yards and the herd is 300 yards, and there's no way to close that gap, so that definitely was a big change. That, and also equipment wise, was a big change. I mean, growing up stand hunting,
Mm-hmm.
if you packed the wrong gear, you had a cold afternoon. In the West, if you packed the wrong gear, you could die.
So true.
I mean, or if you get wet,
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely understanding the gear, understanding the terrain, being in shape.
Yep.
You a lot goes into Western hunting. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a lot to train for. I know friends of mine who like they'll be like, oh, June elk tag. And like 6 months before they're training, and they got that one guy who's like, I don't need to train. And it's like, get the feeling you're going to spend a lot of time at camp, my friend. Like,
yeah,
you got to be prepared.
That's the cook.
Yeah, that's the cook. There you go. Well,
But
speaking of cooking, I'd love to kind of hear about, when you kind of started cooking wild game yourself. Was that something that was very common for you when you were growing up in Louisiana? I mean, I know the culture of Louisiana and like cooking and, wild game go hand in hand. And so I figured that that's something that's, you were probably indoctrinated into at a young age. When did you kind of take that and start running with it yourself?
really, all of that started once I was an adult on my own and was hunting.
Yep.
I would come home after a successful hunt and have to figure out what to do with stuff. But with that said, I also had wild game interchangeable with domestic proteins my entire life. So
Right.
it wasn't that much of a stretch.
Yeah.
Which, not to get too far ahead of myself, but I get a lot of those kind of questions along the way about, like, what do you do with this protein, or what do you do with that protein? And come to find out, most people, it seems, grew up with that one family recipe for deer that usually involved cook it till there's no jiggle in it,
Right.
and and eat it. The terrible the terrible liver taste is part of the deer, right? Or that gamey flavor, that's just part of the deer. That's so, but not to get too far ahead. But no, I always grew up with an understanding of how game was interchangeable with domestic proteins, and especially growing up down south, there wasn't much we were afraid to try to cook and eat.
Right.
So as a culture, we're pretty adventurous with our food.
No, being from Texas, I understand. And Louisiana, all my friends, same kind of thing. It's like, have you ever tried this? It's like, it's easier to make the list of what you haven't tried, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a couple of things that I've had. I'm not a fan. I don't know if I could necessarily just dive in wholeheartedly. I've yet to have that one magic dish to change my mind, but hey, I'll try it.
Yeah. No, I remember the wild game cook-offs that they used to do here in Fort Bend County outside of Houston. And you go around and there's just every single thing imaginable. And, just as a kid, like it was just, you just tried it. And you're like, what are you eating? What's a Rocky Mountain oyster? No, don't worry about it. You just try it out. People like try to give it out. And I'm like, my dad be like, you don't want to try that one. I'm like, okay, cool. So, as a kid, I'm like, but I remember they had like raccoon and armadillo, just things that like you would never normally think of. I tell my friends up in New England about those things, like, you ate what? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you tried it. It's like Roadkill Cafe, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, one of my nuggets of wisdom I like to give out is, if it has a hoof, you can cook it medium. If it has a foot, cook it well.
There you go. There's a T-shirt there somewhere. I feel like there's
probably.
So let's talk about like your decision and your kind of background and like moving into really being in that professional world as being a chef. And your training, traditionally, like what is it that your culinary experience, how is it that you decided to kind of, eventually do tagged out kitchen? But, talk me about how we got to that point there and, your journey in that world.
Yeah. So prior to my culinary life, I worked in industrial controls and installed high-end electromechanical systems throughout airports throughout the country and stuff like that, and decided to change things up and was doing a lot of cooking and smoking at home. And everybody was like, "Oh, this is great. You should open a place." Realizing every failed restaurant started with "you should open a place." I understood that there was more to the craft that I needed to know beyond I could be a good home cook.
Mhm.
So I sought out a local culinary school. I went through their professional program. Upon graduation, I was asked to stay on as a chef instructor. So for me, that was great, right? Like I was a little bit older. I was not going to dive into the kitchen world or the professional kitchen world as we know it. That's a young man's game or a young person's game.
Right. Mhm.
Um, so I was happy to stay on as a chef instructor there, and it kind of helped me as a chef think differently, right? Like I was responsible for writing courses and writing the menus for the courses as well as the recipes, and I had to think of them as if I had to think of them as the student in putting this stuff together. So it really kind of changed my mind on how do I simplify things, how do I make make it not as intimidating to get behind the stove and be creative, right?
Right.
So, so I mean that helped me out quite a bit. Also, and kind of here's where tagged out kitchen kind of comes into play. Part of what I did was I taught um, recreational butchery classes, like whole hog butchery and those sorts of things. And I quickly realized that a lot of the people that were taking these classes were hunters. You know, because where else do you learn how to butcher?
Sure.
uh, and unless you unless you have that uncle that took you under his wing or whatever,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like there's no there. Sure, there's no shortage of YouTube and internet resources out there, but how do you get a hands-on to it? So in talking with the hunters that were taking these classes, I understood where they were coming from as a hunter and maybe where I could help as a chef.
Yeah.
So at that point, I started to kind of look into, as an industry, what's going on with this, right? Like the outdoors industry is huge. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but very little of it is focused on hunter education.
Yeah.
It's all about selling hunts and selling gear, but not
Sure.
but when you look at the piece of the pie that actually involves training, there's nothing there really. So I mean it's a pretty wide open field in that
Yeah.
regard, which, you know, I primary focus of a tagged out kitchen event obviously is the food, but I also like sprinkling in all the other aspects as well to kind of create one cohesive event.
Well, let's jump into that too, because I feel like we're talking about it, but I want listeners to really be able to understand. Let's lay out exactly what Tagged Out Kitchen is, your events, kind of give not just the broad strokes, but kind of let's put some color into that, and let's talk about that so that people can understand. And I think then we can kind of jump into some other conversations and questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, Tagged Out Kitchen is an outdoor experience company, right? So with that, what I do is either I could do something as simple as a private dinner with chef instruction and create more of a chef table experience, or I could broaden that out even to a full hunting experience where we undergo under or tackle basic marksmanship, shot placement, then follow that up with post harvest care, butchery around the sausage, and then conclude that with the chef's table experience, where as a guest, you're cooking alongside me. I'm teaching a culinary class with you,
Yeah,
and you really get that full hands-on 360 approach to it.
sure. No, that's amazing. I mean, for people who are starting at zero and that now can have somebody like you be able to walk them through every single step of the way, that's something that wasn't, common for the longest time. And I know it's still not common. There are some people, and you and I have talked about some
Yep.
chefs that we know who do this as well, all around the country, but it's still few and far between. And that accessibility and affordability used to just not be there. And your courses, to have someone come in, it's well worth every penny, but it's not every penny that they're going to have in their bank to go and have that experience. And I'm sure there's more things. Hey, you want to do a 4-course meal and over 4 different times, you want to do these different animals. Sure, they can add up and things like that. But, what is if somebody wants to come in and, maybe let's just pick something, for example, we're going to go ahead and you're going to do one meal, maybe consisted of a few different wild game, and somebody wants to come into one of these experiences. How do they get involved in that, and what kind of cost are they maybe looking at to be able to be a part of that and kind of, have it kind of from maybe not from all the way from the field to the table, but, it's been butchered and now here's what you do.
Yeah. So typically how I work my events is I will get with landowners, ranch owners, and really I try to focus it around a cull hunt that they
Mm-hmm.
offer. So say for instance, if you have a herd of axis, at some point you need to cull your does.
Right.
So I will try to work it around an existing cull hunt that they have, and then I add a fee per person to be there and create it. That way, it helps sell the hunt for the landowner. It helps, and also it helps bring new blood to their ranch.
Sure.
Right? You get a client base that goes out and starts to associate with a ranch. Well, when they are out there and happen to see this ibex walking around, and they go home and go, man, I want to go get an ibex. They already know a place to call.
Yep.
For instance, if you search ibex Texas, you get pages upon pages upon pages of places that are selling ibex hunts in Texas.
Sure.
So I mean, for the landowner, that ends up being a good thing because they're introducing people to their property,
Right.
and establishing that first contact relationship. And also it for the participant, by doing it at a place with a high success rate, they aren't spending their entire time trying to harvest their animal. They're harvesting their animal, and then they're learning what to do with it beyond that.
Sure.
So I really think of it more as a culinary event that involves hunting than a hunt that involves culinary.
Ah, well said. Yeah.
And from an industry standpoint, sometimes it's difficult to change people's minds on that, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, you own land,
Yep.
how it works,
Sure.
So
Yeah. There's many hunts you go on that you're going to be unsuccessful, but if you're there to be able to teach that next process after the hunt, it's good to have a high success rate.
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that's why Texas is great, right? Whether it's hogs, whether it's a cull hunt on a species, on a different species, you have options.
Sure.
You have the ability to also kind of use these as a starter hunt. Say you did finally draw your Western elk tag in another state, and you have a pre-hunt that you can do before you go and do that hunt, and kind of like a little warm-up, a little preseason shakedown.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a million ways that you can point out the positivities of these sorts of things.
Sure. Sure.
With these events, it helps change perception because it shows people that hunting, when done right, is not blood sport and mayhem. It's actually a very ethical, clean way to harvest an animal. Uh, I try to tell people a lot, like, nature's cruel. You know,
Yes.
I as a hunter, I have one job, and that is not to be as cruel as nature can be. You know, there there's this video I saw recently, and it's this golden eagle standing on the back of an antelope, eating the back straps out of it while it's walking around. You know, nature's harsh.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah. No, I think like Nature is Metal or whatever. It's on Instagram. Like there's
yeah,
always something coming up, and I'm like, dang, like that. That's a tough way to go out.
yeah, exactly. So you know, I I think that I like to think that I have a small piece in that puzzle of changing perceptions, changing minds, making the outdoors not as intimidating, and really just kind of broadening the outdoors to a whole different group of people.
Oh, I think you kind of touched on it a minute ago when you were talking about like coal. For people who are listening who maybe this isn't part of their, verbal lexicon and this lifestyle, there is there's a reason why wild game biologists have jobs, and there's a reason why they give you particular harvest numbers, or there's a certain amount of tags that are issued, because you're trying to keep a healthy herd of whatever animal for future generations. It's never to be like, let's try to decimate the entire herd, right? So like one thing that people need to understand is that, I can't tell you a single hunter that I know who's not a conservationist, who doesn't want to be able to keep this for future generations. It's something that inherently in our system, the money that's, our taxes from the Robertson Pittman, I always say it backwards. I can never figure that one out. But, the money that the excise taxes that go to be able to have, our public lands stay public and open for everybody, state parks, national parks, wildlife refuges, all these places that are existing come from, the people who are sportsmen and women out in the world. So when we're talking about these kinds of things, I just want to make sure that anybody who's listening, hears these terms. It's like, we're talking about something to be able to keep this way of life and the wilderness wild, and to be able to help sustain that habitat and that environment for future generations. Just making sure that we're saying that, because I think it's a responsibility for us to act as both, right?
Absolutely. And again, not to like get on a moral high horse or point anybody out or anything like that, but hunters are the only group that utilize public lands that actually pay for the right to do it. Hikers aren't charged at a trailhead. Mountain bikers aren't charged at a trailhead. I mean, but in essence, who is? It's your hunters. They by purchasing their licenses, their stamps, paying to take hunter safety courses, all of that.
Fishermen and women as well, right? The outdoors users. Sure.
Yeah. So no, there's a lot of value there. And like the changes I've seen living in Colorado for as long as I have, and the effects that have affected the outdoors industry, or the outdoors here, are just mind-boggling. I mean,
let's talk about that, because I know a little bit on the peripheral, but like, being an insider and someone who's been involved in that and now has an industry in that, let's talk about that. What are you seeing? What are you feeling about, what's happening these days? What are some changes?
So, a big thing is like our current governor and our current governor's husband are huge supporters of animal rights groups. So the past 3 commissioners we've had for the Department of Wildlife here have all come from anti-hunting lobbying groups. That's part of the wolf reintroduction. So instead of allowing hunting, let's just reintroduce an apex predator and give it an endangered classification. So
right. So they're off the list, that there's nothing you can do about them. You see them, if they get to a certain number, maybe they would change then, but at the moment, free reign, there's no hunting, right?
Yeah, I mean the official reintroduction hasn't happened yet. It's happening very soon, though.
Okay.
But realistically, there are already wolves here.
Right.
I mean, there already are. They've naturally migrated in.
Sure.
They only officially acknowledged the first wolf packs after the election.
Okay.
But they've already been here. There's more than enough ranchers and outdoors folks and whatnot that have seen them.
Sure.
Also, over the past few years, I mean, like there's of your western states, Colorado has the highest percentage of non-resident tag availability. We're per the state guidelines, we're supposed to be at 25% non-resident to resident tags.
Okay.
Where like your next highest state's Wyoming, which is like 11 or 12. Montana is like 3 or 4%. Idaho, Utah, same thing. But because of our draw process and preference point system, if you have a certain number of preference points, you either say you're using your preference points, or you have to apply for a preference point first in order to not use preference points.
Okay.
Well, if you have preference points and you don't have enough to say maybe get into a better unit, you're gonna by default forfeit your first draw and hope to pick up something in the second draw by applying for a preference point first. Well, the state has taken that data and in certain units went, oh no, we don't have enough resident participation in this unit, so we just need to open it up to non-residents. And now certain units in the state are over 65% non-resident hunters.
And again, for people who don't understand, there's a huge difference in your state tag price and your non-resident state tag price. So do you find that this is just a big money grab for them? What does that look like for you?
I mean, look, I'm only speaking on this topic as the man on the street.
Right.
I'm by no means am I in any capacity or in some secret club of knowledge. I just know I just know what I'm seeing as the end user man on the street.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm curious about.
And the non-resident bull tag is like $760 versus $65 as a resident. But as a resident, I can't even put myself in that $700 tag pool if I want it. Right? like I can't say, well, you know what? Let me try to buy a non-resident tag and see if I can draw a tag that way.
Right,
it's not even an option on my table. And I pay taxes to live in this state, and part of my taxes should entitle me to not have to pay $700 for a tag.
Yeah. Or at least not go up against a staggeringly high number of non-residents you have to compete with for that. As far as that.
I mean, it's the equivalent of you live in a neighborhood. It's an HOA. You pay your HOA fees, and part of that is you get to use the community pool, but you can never use the community pool because they're always leasing it out for people that don't live in the neighborhood to have private parties.
And they never invite me.
Yeah, they never invite me. It's again, this is a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, but
rabbit hole discussion. But again, I think it kind of circles back to with what I do and with what others in the outdoor industry do with the process of recruiting and retaining and keeping hunters engaged, is to make the more people that are a part of it see that, like, oh wow, it's really like that. Well, that's not fair. Or it makes it harder for states that may or may not have an agenda
Mhm.
to push an agenda if you have more participants willing that are wanting to be a part of it. So
Well, that's our voting power, right? Like that's something that's it's very important. You see it every year. There's something that comes up where there's some kind of legislation where people who maybe aren't as focused or aren't thinking that they're going to go out there. It's like, no, it's important you go and vote on this, because if you want to have this particular way of life, or you don't want this thing to change, you want to be able to have this for your kids. It's like it's important to pay attention to those, as they come up, because there's a lot of different things that come up every single year, and it's super important. So I'm glad we kind of dove into that for a minute, because I'm curious too, just always about hearing about other states and how things are run and what are the challenges thereof.
Yeah, and again, by no means am I selling myself as an authority on the topic, but but do a little research.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understand where, if you're looking at doing a Western hunt, you know, Wyoming and Montana, it might take you a lot longer to draw a tag, but trust me, it'll be a much better hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
You will actually end up in those places that aren't the sea of orange.
Yes.
That are out there.
Well, let's talk about some hunts that maybe you got coming up. What are some things that you put in a draw for this year? Are there some hunts that you're going out? I mean, and then maybe what are some tagged out kitchen events that are maybe happening this fall that are kind of maybe related or unrelated, and just kind of lay out on what's happening, because we're on the edge of the hunting season and it's begun in a lot of areas and it's exciting time. So, walk me through what you got going.
Yeah. So, right now this year, I'm doing a lot of private gigs. I have a lot of those scheduled coming up around the holidays. I'm going to try to get out and hunt as much as possible. I have some Eastern Plains whitetail tags this year,
Nice.
which most of those are like mitigation tags. Whitetail out, if you're not familiar, whitetail out west aren't typically out here. So, and they're doing a lot of harm to our resident mule deer population. So, I've been able to pick up several whitetail tags that I can archery hunt as well as rifle hunt. And I feel like this year, not only am I going to be doing a lot of hunting for whitetail, but I'll also hopefully be doing some good for our mule deer population by that.
Indeed.
Yeah, and then in a couple of weeks, I'm actually doing an event out in Beaver Creek for an event called Elevation. Elevation is a big invite-only country music fest that they do up in Beaver Creek. Tagged Out Kitchen has been invited back to sponsor a skeet shooting event for them. So we're going to have some people out and doing some skeet shooting, and I'm going to be cooking a whole lot of barbecue for them. So
nice.
And then in December, I'm also going to be working with a veterans organization, putting on a field to table for a veterans event out in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's great, man. What group
that's
is that going to be with?
It's with the True Warrior Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Ryan Long, who is Oklahoma State Police, former Marine, him and his wife started this group a few years ago, and they did it because they really wanted to get back to our military and law enforcement community. And this is the third year doing this event. It's been a lot of fun every year. Great guys come out, get to give back a little bit, get to send them home with new skills, and always get to meet some great people. So
yeah. Oh, that sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful, man. So then is that kind of the main part? I mean, it sounds like you're gonna be working a lot. So but you'll be getting out there a little bit too. Anything else you need hunting that you got going on besides those ones?
At this point, not right now.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I really am trying to keep my schedule open.
Yeah.
As events come up. I am in early 2024. I am going to get out and get a chance to do a little herd mitigation for a private elk ranch
Oh,
So
nice.
so I'll be able to get a little meat in the freezer and hone my elk butchery skills a little more. So
Well, speaking of honing your butchery skills, I mean, I already know you're a super talented man, but you just had a recent test of your butchery skills. You know, I'm going to put this picture in here so people can understand the size. But recently, you went and you butchered a buffalo that weighed between 2,000 and 2,500 pounds, and or bison, if someone want to call it that. We can get into that later. But this picture here, I think it speaks 1,000 words. You had quite the task ahead of you. Walk me through how this opportunity came up, and then talk me through the butchering, and then what do you got planned here? I can only imagine how much of a process this was, and I am just dying to learn more about it.
so um I was I've been having some talks with a local group out here. It's the Fort McIntosh Grasslands Conservation Area,
Mhm.
and they have probably the largest herd of Manitoban elk in the country, as well as 50, 60 head of bison, buffalo out there. And basically, about 10 years ago, they took farmland out in eastern Colorado, did all the research, and reverted it back to the native grasslands and created this habitat for the Manitoban elk as well as the buffalo. So it's roughly like 6 square miles fenced in of just blue sky and eastern plains, and they they sell off hunts throughout over the year for elk and their bison herd to help fund the project and everything. And I spoke with their ranch manager about the possibility of maybe teaming up and doing some work together. And as I left, he called me and said that he just noticed one of their trophy bulls had an abscess or possibly a hernia. And if I knew anybody that wanted it, he could let it go at a great price. So, which was basically pennies on the dollar of what one of their trophy bull hunts go for. So I reached out to a contact. Of course, he was like, I've always wanted a massive buffalo hanging in my living room. And he drove out from Tampa, and and we connected. We found the animal in question, and we harvested. We harvested it, and after it was on the ground, like I've done smaller buffalo over the years. Yeah, oddly enough, out in eastern Colorado, there's a lot of places you can just go and buy a buffalo relatively inexpensively, and so I've had quite a bit of experience with smaller ones,
Uh-huh.
but never one this size. This animal was probably 10, 11 years old. I mean, like they just don't get any bigger.
Right.
I mean, uh, and so yeah, with the use of some farm equipment and a couple of cranes and a front end loader, we got this thing to the skinning shed and got it out and hanging in the meat locker. And honestly, I just approached it like I would a deer.
Yeah.
I I pulled out the inside tenders. I quartered it out, or I hunter quartered it out, not butcher quartered it, but I hunter quartered it out. And
And explain that real quick for people who don't know maybe the difference. What is hunter quartering it out?
so a hunter quarter is you remove all four legs, you pull the back straps, you get your inside tenders, carve off your rib meat, that sort of stuff. Where like a actual butcher quarter is you split the animal into four pieces. Starting basically your hind quarter runs from just past the ribs, split the spine down the middle, and you have your two hind quarters, and then split that again, and you have your four quarters.
Mhm.
So, uh, so yeah, I I really just kind of dove in like a big deer, did it all with a 6-inch boning knife. and 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 just whittled away at it and pulled out the cuts and everything as I know them on a deer, so, or on a deer or elk or any other four-legged critter with that body shape.
Wow. So aside from the inevitable carpal tunnel that probably came from such a process, what kind of timeline did that look like for you? Was that something you guys took over a couple of different days, or is that something you just kind of tackled all at once? What was that like?
So we got the animal down. It was probably about 6:30, 7 p.m. Got it back, skinned out by 8:30, 9 o'clock. They had a giant walk-in freezer, so we were able to put the whole animal in the freezer and get it cooled out. Then the next morning, it basically was just one long day.
Yeah.
From about 10 a.m. to about 1:30 in the morning, by the time we had everything cut up, packaged, ground up, and packaged and on our way.
So then what happened with that meat? Is that something that he took back with him? I'm sure that there's some that went to your freezer too, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Some of it came to my freezer. I took a lot of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
With an animal that old, you're not going to get you're going to get a big ribeye, but it's not going to be succulent. Right?
Yeah.
Age plays a role. So,
yep.
But no, I took probably 100 pounds of ground meat. I think after it's all said and done, we had probably 600-700 pounds of meat processed.
Wow.
On the grasslands conservation area, they actually save all the bones, make huge amounts of stock. So every hunter goes home with like 5 gallons of stock when they go out there. I mean, it's one of the most complete operations I've seen as far as whole animal utilizations.
That's excellent. That's excellent. There's something to that too, as far as like, we were just kind of talking before the podcast, the idea of like the buffalo and what that was for all the native people here, and using every bit. And so it's nice to see that is something that is all of it's utilized in that fashion still,
Yeah. And truthfully, that I think that's really, I think that's, again, circling back to the food tie, that is your full circle, right? Your hunt and harvest is only half.
Yeah.
The other half is, what do you do after?
Right.
Unfortunately, far too many people put stuff in a freezer, and then next September, when hunting season comes around again, out with the old and in with the new. But it's just, I firmly believe, though, it's just because a lot of people don't know any better and think that they have to do something special with it or save these proteins for a special occasion. They are everyday proteins if you have them.
Yeah.
Believe me, hunting, you don't hunt for the economic effect of getting deer, right? Like, beef in the store is way cheaper than, like, I mean, if you think about it, what dove meat must be about $1,000 a pound, I mean, so you have this stuff, use it. Don't be afraid to, even if you're just making hamburger helper, venison will work just fine in that.
Yep.
You have it, use it.
It reminds me of, like, I don't know if you ever seen the Jeff Foxworthy skit where he's like talking to his wife about like the meat that he's like, it cost me $5,000 a year for the lease. Plus we get the 4-wheeler. I'm not even including ammo and my new shotgun. And he's like, he's at it and goes, that's the most expensive meat on the planet. It's $98 a pound for that venison because I want the best for my family. You think I like getting up in the morning? It is the best skit, but it like talks about like that economic portion. Like, yeah, it actually is very expensive meat.
Look, America is the only place that hunting wasn't just for the royals.
Right.
I mean, throughout I mean, if you look at
The king's
European,
deer, sure, yeah,
yeah, I mean, when you look at European hunting, that that was the your top 10%, but I I think just out of need and sustainability, I think if you aren't familiar with it and you come from a place that hunting isn't prevalent, you're more inclined to think it's the lower 10% that hunts.
Right.
So I mean, it's places that show you and courses that show you how to utilize this whole animal. Is you've got gold in the freezer.
No, you totally do. I use it for so many different things, man. I mean, just this week I've done burger, I've done ground for, spaghetti. It's just so many different things you can utilize. Breakfast sausage. And I find that that's something that I try to utilize, especially as the new season approaches. I'm like, okay, now if I have some left over, I really got to do something with that.
Yeah.
So Lance, I actually wanted to talk to you. I know you got some bison to cook, but what are some other things that are in your freezer now? What are some meals that you have prepared soon for, your family and your friends?
So I definitely have some wild hog in the freezer. And I actually have a wild hog bolognese that I made this summer. So I always try to make all of my hunting camp meals real far in advance and have them packaged and frozen. So I have some Canada goose. I have some whitetail and some mule deer and a little bit of elk.
Nice.
I always end up doing all of my favorite cuts, which are the shanks and necks first. I I just think those cuts of meats, whenever they're slow braised and you make a traditional stew or a gravy, it's just so filling. It's so versatile, and it could be that Sunday eat all week meal, or that make on Sunday, eat on Wednesday, freeze and pull out in February. I mean, there's just so many options with those things. Um, I I have a few steaks and some inside tenders that I'm saving for a special occasion. So what that is yet, I don't know, but
when you know, it'll be there. You can utilize
exactly. Yeah. I happened to catch a show today. It was about being up at the Arctic Circle, and this guy like kills a moose, and I heard the most poignant line ever out of that show. And this guy kills his moose, and he's talking about bringing it back to the elders of the Inuit village. And he said that his uncle, who I guess is the head elder, always likes the stew meat. And he's like, stew is for we and steak is for me. And I was like, that is genius. I never thought of it that way, but it really sticks.
Yeah.
So I like cooking. I like mostly cooking with the wee meats.
Yes. Man, good point. Good point. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's true. And I've heard someone recently talk about the same kind of thing too. Is like whenever you have that gathering, it's like that is something that go in there and put whatever you want in your bowl, and it's not that is. I'm going to use that myself now too. I like that.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
yeah. I wish I could. I wish I could remember the gentleman's name who said it on that show, so I could properly cite him. But
we can look that up. And we'll throw in the comments down below.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, but no, it was one of those. Like every now and then, you hear a good comment, and you're like, "Man, I wish I would have thought of that."
Yep. Yep. No, I did so many times. I'll be in the middle of conversations. I'm like, hold on, like texting myself or put in my notes and stuff. I'm like, that was a really good one. I'm gonna keep that one. Use that again.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So getting back, some of the favorites I really like to do. I do a shank or neck braised in Guinness with leeks. That's really a favorite of mine. I definitely like to go into like a lot of the classic Italian sauces, utilizing the the wild proteins, um, and obviously there's no shortage of different gumbo and jambalaya and all of my classic home comfort flavors.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that something that you're bringing a lot into that? Or do you kind of have, if someone was going to talk about maybe what your signature style is and how you could pinpoint it, is there something that you could kind of point to and say, yeah, it's kind of this? Or do you feel like it's just influence from all around the world, and maybe, or do you kind of have something that's honed in? Because I know you can take the boy out of Louisiana, but you can't take Louisiana out of the boy,
Yeah. So that, I mean, actually, that's a great question. And truthfully, it's one of those things like you never think about till you're asked.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But if I had to put a spin on it, I would say I draw from all of my life influences. I have a dish I do utilize in quail, duck, and pheasant legs. And it's kind of a hybrid of a classic French dish and a jambalaya. Kind of how my mind worked, right? So in essence, there's a French dish. It's called coq au vin. I'm sure pretty common one. Well, in northern France, because of the wine that's available, it's Cocoa Riesling. So they use a white Riesling wine. So I started experimenting with making Cocoa Riesling and then doing that with duck legs and pheasant legs and liked where it was going. And then one night, just need to make dinner. I had some barley. I threw that in essence, made it in the style of a jambalaya, but using all of the French flavors. And it sounds a little funky, but it was so delicious.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you it's the experimentation that comes up with certain different things. Like, I was just kind of curious, like, is that something like your approach when you're creating new dishes? I mean, it sounds like this one is a fusion of different ideas and you brought things together and you found out what worked. Is that something that you are experimenting a lot, or are you you found what's worked by your experimentation, or are you always going to try to find that next thing and that, whatever else you can kind of bring in and fuse together?
So I'm a firm believer the classics are the classics for a reason.
Yep.
All your food trends at some point go from a classic to getting way out of bounds and finally make their way back to a classic, right? So I really try to stick with that mindset, but I try to think of coming at it from a place of a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to do this, how can I get the same result but make it less complicated to the end user, make it less intimidating, right? So like if you made a classic beef bourguignon, right? It's 3 pages in a cookbook. Well, I kind of dummied it down, simplified a little bit of a little bit of this, and really condensed that by more than half now. And it's something as a home cook you're willing to tackle.
Right.
So I think that's where my experimentation comes in, is like, how do I take something from a level 10 and get it down to a solid 6.5, as far as difficulty, And I've had some successes. God knows I've had failures, I mean, but with every failure is another nugget of knowledge. So,
Yeah.
It, it it's definitely a labor of love in that aspect.
Sure. Well, it's I think you have to kind of test those boundaries sometimes too, and just, I guess that's kind of a generalized saying too, of like, the failures is where you learn the most. Your successes,
Yeah.
you don't really, you can have your own accolades and things. Oh, that worked, but you're not really learning. You're not pushing past another boundary. And sometimes you have to find that out. And like, you're experimenting with a dish that, hey, you were trying to utilize something a little bit different. And you finally found out what worked. And, I can't tell you how many times I've cooked something where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try this. And it's like, I am not going to serve this to anybody. This was not a winner. I'm going to chalk this up that recipe's done, or whatever I might have tried to do. And my buddy Matthew Mitchell and I would always joke about it. Like, I go off script. He'll go buy the recipe, and I'm like, I'm going to try to add this into this. And he's just like, what are you doing? He's like, that's the one I told you was good as it is. And now, like, there's some that I will follow to a T. One of Jesse Griffith's, the smothered chops. That's like anybody who I know who wants to try wild hog for the first time. I found that is the one for me that I know. And I'm sure there's many other ones I just haven't learned yet. But that's the one that I know I'm going to stick to this one, because tried and true, if I do it the way that it says it, it's going to be something that most people find very palatable. They really enjoy it. And it's something that I know that I can turn people, I've had people, big hogs are horrible, 200 pounds or, whatever that is. It's anything bigger than that's bad. And I'm like, oh, that was a 250-pound boar you just ate. It's like, if you do it the right way, it's you can make, even something like that is unpalatable, very enjoyable. So,
well, so much of cooking is, I think a lot of cooking and cooking education overlooks the fact that cooking is simple science, right? You've applied heat, and you're trying to make a chemical change, or So I get frustrated sometimes when I write my recipes. I really try to write them of do this for 5 minutes or your best judgment, right?
Yeah.
Or add a. And like as far as like salt and pepper, I always just do salt and pepper to taste, right? Because my tolerance for salt and pepper and your tolerance for salt and pepper may be two totally different things. So I try to approach it more from the science of it as opposed to the mechanical robotic side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And try to teach people, like, how do you teach feel, right? That's a really tough thing to teach, but I think you have so many recipes that will say like, oh, cook this for like 9 minutes, and I can't tell you how many people would pull that at 9 minutes, whether it can still get up and run off the pan or is a lump of charcoal. Like, at no point during that 9 minutes did you look at it and go, wow, it's going a little strong there. Maybe I could pull that off now. Right. So I always try to like circle those things back to like understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're going for a sear, that's one thing. If you're going for a poach, that's another thing, and really to kind of focus more on the method and what that means as opposed to the time.
No, that's a good point. And that's something too that it's again, sometimes that comes from your failures. I can't tell you, there's been a lot of times where, I remember the first few times I tried to fry a turkey, and there's a lot of difference in a wild turkey and a store-bought. And there's a difference in the time that you have to do that. And I was like, oh, the other ones I would do for this long. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I pull this up and I'm like, it looks like a burnt tire. And probably tasted like it. And I was like, I did it just to try it. And like, no one's getting this one.
It was like that turkey in Christmas Vacation where they cut it open and it just
exactly.
And actually, like with game meats, when you overcook them, that's where you get like that funky liver note. It gets tough, it gets sinewy, more so than domestic game, or more so than domestic proteins, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when I hear people say, "Oh, I don't like wild game," it's usually because you just had it prepared improperly. I'm big in like pointing out to people on the butchery side of things, like, that is a gland. Get that out of there.
Yeah.
I have heard I I have heard and from very reputable people that, venison fat and glands and all that, it doesn't matter if you cook it right. I I can agree, but I've personally never seen it myself. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, your 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 care beforehand does so much to affect flavor.
Well, what are some maybe tips you have for people? Because this is, during the fall when I'm interviewing chefs, I like to have some tips and tricks, some 101, 202, whatever it may be to advance things. What are some things that you feel like maybe when you're teaching your courses that people are like those aha moments that people get that you're giving them stuff that it's like, oh, you really, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to have a better overall experience at the end. And whether that's maybe in the field or maybe that's in butchering, hey, pointing out the gland, or maybe it's in how you're packaging. And I'm also kind of curious too, like how you're packaging a lot of the different things. I've seen so many different methods. So maybe if there's some things there you can kind of dive into and kind of give me some of the things that you would tell people that were in your course.
Yeah. So to people in my course, first and foremost, I would tell them for meat preservation, I keep on all the silver skin. I'll take glands out, but for the most part, keep on the silver skin. That's a barrier against frostbite, basically.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. That and a good quality vacuum sealer. If there is air in the bag, you are gonna get freezer burn. I have had some success though with some saran wrap and butcher paper, but for the most part, your average hunter that's going to tackle this process at home, a good vac sealer is worth your weight in gold.
Yeah.
Recently, I've been doing some work with a company that does vac sealers and chamber vacs, and I'm a huge fan of the chamber vac now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I chamber vac everything.
I haven't jumped in there, but I've seen it and it's very appealing.
Yeah, yeah. It's with that said, the cost of equipment, um, a suction vac is cheaper than the chamber vac, but the material for the suction vac is like 10 times the cost of the chamber vac bags, right? So if you use it a lot, you very easily can recoup that difference in price. But not turning this into a suction vac chamber vac commercial, but
Right. 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 Right.
but
No, but it's something that people need to know these things. So I've seen people that they've wrapped it in foil. I've
yeah,
seen people who have gone the whole saran wrap and then the butcher paper route. I've seen people who've just done butcher paper. I've seen people do chamber, vac seal. There's been so many different ways that people have prepared it, or they're like, my uncle taught me to do this. That
yeah,
maybe isn't the best way to do it for
no,
long-term storage, or maybe that might work for X many months as opposed to a year or two. So I think it's an important discussion.
yeah, no. My rule of thumb is the best way that you can afford to create a barrier between air and the frost in your refrigerator or in your freezer from the meat you're trying to save, whether that is saran wrap and butcher paper or saran wrap and wax paper or whatever, or a suction vac or a chamber vac. Just be cognizant of whatever method you use, you draw the air. Oh, there's no air pockets, or try to minimize the air pockets around your meat as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I I I know personally I've pulled stuff out of the freezer and been like, oh, wow, it's 3.5 years old. Well, it's Wednesday. Let's go for it. And
Wouldn't do this on a Thursday, but Wednesday. Yeah.
yeah, Wednesday is it's a busy week. It's a busy week at my house, so but no, I mean, and depending on what it is, like ground, I've shaved off a little freezer burn,
Sure.
and it's been fine. I
Yeah.
mean, is it ideal? No, but is it? Is there a hard? Oh, that's been in the freezer too long. No, it's your comfort level. If you pull it out and it shriveled up and has freezer burn and then yeah, toss that. But if there's just
Yeah.
a little around the edges, you're fine.
Yeah, you'll kind of know.
Yeah, you'll know. I mean, because I mean, really, what you're talking about is the texture of your end product more than like it going bad. Like it's in the freezer, it's not going to go bad in terms of become poisonous or anything overnight. It's just going to have bad texture, and if it's gone too far, the texture will be less ideal, I
Yeah,
should
it
say.
depends on who you're serving it for, right? You're serving it for
Yeah.
family, or you're serving it for that buddy who's been on the couch for too long. You're like, here, you eat this.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, as long as your freezer stays frozen and you keep air away from your proteins, they'll ride a while.
Yep.
They'll,
Yeah, a
they'll
lot
ri-
longer than some people think. I mean,
Yeah,
I've even heard Ranella talk about that. He's like, I'm not going to give the exact many years that it was in there, but it was more than recommended too.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm not advocating it as a new method.
Yes.
You know?
However, if it fell to the very back of the freezer, you can pull it back out.
It was under that pile of frost back there.
Yeah.
It was encapsulated.
It was fine. It was fine.
It was fine.
Do you do any dry aging?
I do not. Truthfully, I would love to.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of having the space to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
If I will let stuff hang as long as I can,
Mm-hmm.
provided I have a place to safely put it. But I've looked into the dry age freezing unit because actually I would love to do cured sausages.
Yeah.
Because basically it's the same equipment.
Sure.
And weirdly enough, a little mini fridge dry ager is about $3,000. So I'm like, not that excited about it.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Does it make it that much better? Talk about expensive meat. Yeah.
If anybody listening makes a dry aging meat fridge, please reach out.
Here's our phone numbers. Call us. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta have a new sponsor in about a month, right? There you go.
Yeah. If I'm lucky. but no, I mean seriously though, that I would love to have a place to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And dive in a little more into like your cured sausages, like your salamis, your traditional Spanish chorizos, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's it. I got a buddy who does dry age, my buddy Matthew Mitchell, and he'll do it in an outdoor fridge, and he's gone about a month or two. We've done some steaks that he's pulled out, and I mean it's just amazing. And we got a buddy Larry White, Wildgame Gourmet, who's out on the key, and he was kind of walked us through some stuff last year on what to do, and we tried them out. So I'm always down to try some different dishes and different preparations and everything, and just kind of as far as sharing that too with the listeners. So, speaking about wild game and learning from different people and, talking to different chefs and getting some ideas, this is part self-serving, but I think it'll benefit every listener as well. Matthew Mitchell and I have a list of different types of wild game in our freezer. And, I would like to ask you some of the things that maybe you would do with that. Maybe I'll just start with some of our small game stuff. We've got cottontail. Every year we get at least a handful of rabbits. And I just want to know, what would you do with something like that?
So funny you mentioned cottontail. One of the life-changing food experiences I had was with cottontail. So so
let's hear it.
While I was in the Navy, my ship ported in the south of France, and my buddy and I signed up for this whole like adopt a sailor thing, where like local people would like take you in for a couple of days, and we got adopted by this couple that lived within the Kingdom of Monaco.
Okay.
And so they connected with us, we were porting in Marseille, and they told us to take the train to Monaco. So they pick us up, and it was this wonderful older couple that, ironically enough, they lived in the Houston area post World War II, had a French restaurant in Houston that was around for years. And when they retired, moved back to, because they were Monaco citizens, they're entitled to basically live there for free, I think is kind of how it works. So after they retired, they went back to Monaco to ride out the rest of their life. Well, this wonderful couple picked us up, made us this phenomenal meal with langoustine and shrimp and all these proteins. I'm 22. I've never had this stuff in my life, right? It was delicious. Well, the next day they want to take us up to their house in the Alps above Monaco. So we go up and they have this just gorgeous little hobbit house on the side of a mountain, and they had all these rabbits running around the yard. And the older gentleman, his name was Louis, goes and grabs this little 22 and he like shoots like 3 of the rabbits and brings them inside. And what they made was the most divine thing I've ever had in my life. It was, they cleaned these rabbits and just with a little simple flour and butter, pan fried them. They made a pan sauce with some lemon and caper, and then served that over just like a simple green salad on a plate. And to this day, I don't know if I've ever had better food in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a treat.
Yeah. No, it was, I mean, and honestly, for me, I think that was when I first got the food bug.
Yeah.
As far as like really thinking of food as something more than just a commodity item.
Right.
Like that, like for me, that was that first meal that I was like, oh, this is something special.
Yeah.
You know?
This is an experience, not just something
but yeah,
fuel you.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that said, if you have some white wine and butter and a simple pan sauce and some capers, that would make an excellent cottontail with that.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
We'll try that out. Moving on to some other ones too, I guess, if you wouldn't mind it maybe let's jump into quail. We've got a bunch of whole quail that we have that are still left over, and we're about to be going again. It's a lot of these, we have some left over from last year. We've tried a couple different things, but love to hear it because we're also going to be going and putting more in the freezer here soon.
Yeah. So for me personally, I love the traditional quail, just a little salt and pepper, hot oven, and 10 to 12 minutes. Like, to me, that's the best eating in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you can kind of elevate that by spatchcocking them.
Yep.
Smoking them for about 30 minutes until they hit like that medium that you like, and then from that, give them a quick flash in a pan with hot butter just to kind of crisp up the skin.
Yep.
And then you kind of get the best of both worlds with the fried and smoked quail. You know,
getting hungry over here.
Yeah. Definitely do that. Serve that maybe with a little fig jam and whole grain mustard.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet that'd be delicious.
Oh, I'm in. And is that something? Do you do a lot of smoking? I mean, I was going to ask you too, like, as far as with your wild game things, is there certain stuff that you put on a smoker, or is that something you don't, maybe utilize as often?
No, I do a lot with the smoker. I actually really enjoy working with a traditional stick burner.
Yep.
I think pellet grills are great. I think pellet grills help people make a lot of really good smoked food, but there's something about the artisanal effect of understanding the fire.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
Sure. No, I grew up with it. It was mesquite, and just because that's what we always had, and thousands of acres around us. But that was and then when I started hunting a little bit more in Central Texas, moving into live oak, and really kind of learning that. So I've got a big old smoker that company I work with, Horizon Smokers, had sent it down to me, and so I'm really learning that. It's been too hot in Texas because I feel like I want to be comfortable when I'm cooking at least, it's been like 110 degrees in the shade. I'm like, I don't want to sit next to a smoker right now. Like it's the last thing I want to do at the end of the day. But, now as the temperatures will hopefully be, decreasing, that's something I'm going to be using a lot more. I love learning and having something about live smoke and putting the wood on yourself. And so again, it's for those who use pellet, and that's great. I prefer to use, that live wood method myself.
Sometimes depending on what I'm cooking and how long I've been doing it, I question like, why haven't I got a pellet smoker?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around hour 18 of every 30 minutes, throwing a log.
I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean you could Bluetooth this in?
Yeah, exactly.
We got a buddy. He's like out at his house. He's like, he's at the beach and he's got a beach house, and he's like telling me, he's like, yep, just turned it up to whatever. And I'm like, from the beach? It's like, okay, this is maybe something that I might need to check out for just like those times you were saying, hour 18. Like,
yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah. So oddly enough, we're actually in my man cave smoke hangout room.
Uh-huh.
This project originally started out, I needed a shed and I wanted to have like a little lean-to to put my smoker under. So in the winter, I wasn't fighting snow and wind and cold temperatures. And then I ended up with this, and my smoker's still outside. So, but
it's all good.
But now I have a cool place with cable TV and it's climate controlled for smoking on football Saturday. So
it makes those 18 hours not as difficult then,
Exactly.
You have a place to come into for that. Yeah. No, that's
good. of a kitchen to mess up outside.
Yep.
That my wife isn't complaining that I'm messing up the kitchen inside.
Yes. So, yes, this is important, man. This is important. As we grow and we're able to do those things, it's very important.
Yeah. No, but with the game meats though, I find sometimes with the fat content of game meat,
mm-hmm.
I will start with some smoke and then end in more of a slow braise kind of wet method.
Yeah.
To keep it from drying out so much,
Yep.
Whether you're smoking a brisket or cooking venison shanks, it's that sweet spot of 180 degrees to 200 degrees that all of those connective tissues start to render out. And that's when you get that fall off the bone tenderness of those tougher cuts is in that window. And the longer you can hold it in that window, the more tender and the more of those connective tissues are going to render out and start adding flavor and collagen to like your different pan sauces and that sort of stuff.
Sure.
So I like to start a lot of that stuff on the smoker and as kind of like a pre-cook flavoring method.
Yeah.
And then finish it off and something that's a little more composed that can hold up to the amount of time that you have to cook it to achieve that result.
Yeah, no, great points, man. Great points. Let me throw maybe two more at you, and then I'll kind of let you go on that one. But I know that we talked before, and that you enjoy a good pate. Is there anything besides pate that you're doing with venison liver?
I'll cut it into some grind. I typically save it for when I'm making like boudin.
Uh-huh.
I love adding liver to boudin. But like the country pate, a composed pate, head cheese.
Yep.
All of those are very similar with the cooking methods, a lot of the seasonings and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, as far as like just making a big old pan of some venison liver and onions, I can't do it.
Yeah. I'm not a fan with it either myself.
No, I love it. I love the flavor notes it imparts, but as far as just pulling on up and taking a big old bite, and I can't do it.
It's fair, man. I'm in the same boat, man. I'm in the
Yeah.
same. Like even with pate, there's a certain amount. There's only so many crackers I can have of it. But
Yeah.
the boudin is something I hadn't integrated that as, and that's something that I really want to get into a little bit more this year. Is kind of doing that because it's just something I didn't grow up having that. So it's something that I'm interested in.
So I mean, I guess in its simple, maybe it comes from previously working in the engineering field, but I process, I break down everything in a process, right? So in my mind, head cheese, pate, country pate, and boudin start off here, and then at one point one goes this way, then at one point one goes that way.
Right.
Like they all kind of come, like there's an element of them that all kind of follow that same origin until it's pulled off in a different direction by the addition of this ingredient or that ingredient. But you're still working with the same parts.
Yep.
So like when it comes to boudin, like if you look up a Cajun head cheese recipe and a Cajun boudin recipe, they're virtually identical and kind of with your addition of the liver and how you poach out the hog head and how the ingredients you use, and then at some point you take what you allow to chill and become a block of head cheese, and then you incorporate rice into it and stuff it into a natural hog casing, and it's boudin.
Yep.
So I love experimenting with stuff like that and kind of breaking that stuff, and again just kind of breaking that stuff down. And I also like kind of thinking of things I knew and grew up with,
right?
And how do you make, say for instance, so living out in Colorado, right? Green chilies are huge here, right? Like it's fire roasted chili season right now.
Yes, big time.
Like New Mexico is known for their red chili, Colorado for their green. There's some parts in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado that get into full-blown fistfights about who have the best chili. So a few years ago I was like, how do I had a bunch of wild hog, and I was like, you always have pork and green chili, so I'm like, how do I make like a sausage with wild hog but it's got all the flavors of green chili? So I started experimenting with that, and then threw in a little pepper jack cheese, and out comes this fire roasted wild hog green chili sausage, and it works well with venison. How could it not work well?
Yeah.
Oh, with just shy of a flip flop. I mean, you can kind of make anything with that flavor profile. Tastes pretty good, So my mind definitely kind of works a lot in that space of, I like this, but I need this. So how can I use these? How can I bend this to make it work with this sort of thing, right? And I think that's also kind of what lends. I think that mentality lends a lot to working with wild game, right? Like you aren't working with your fat ratios of domestic proteins. So how? So yeah, you got to think outside the box a little bit. Maybe go little atypical to get wild game to work as you would true 80-20 ground beef, right?
Right. No, I mean, a lot of times the venison will add some like brisket fat or something that, just including something else, it might bring a little bit of a different flavor profile. It's like, I've had some people who are like, yeah, I use a little bit of duck fat or just something that, bear grease, different things that you may utilize to just try to see what kind of flavor profile that can bring, and bring in those other elements. You said the different types of cheeses or different types of peppers, And it's really just a fun, experimental board to work with until you find out what, flavor profiles you like, or that, those you're cooking for like. It's just, this is the time of year that we're always just trying different things and new recipes. So much fun.
Yeah. But with that said, not all the ideas are good ideas. There's some ideas that are just hot garbage from the start.
Yep.
Probably an avenue you shouldn't go down.
There's definitely some filtering you can do as you grow your stuff. Like, oh, that recipe, I'm just going to skip that page altogether. I'm going to go to the next page.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I experiment with two knowns.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are just certain things like licorice and lamb, right? Like, you've never heard of anything with licorice and lamb. You know why? Because it doesn't work.
Maybe some green jelly. Go with what's known, right?
Yeah. Like, go for it. You can experiment, but
the mint jelly. That's what I meant to say. The mint.
Yeah. I mean, definitely feel free to experiment, but under
asterisks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more that Matthew had sent me over earlier today. He's got some wild hog bottom round, and he wanted to know what you would do with that if you had some of that at your disposal.
Oh, geez, wild hog bottom round. I would definitely go in and probably do like a little birria with it. Like braise that down in red chilies, and then shred that up, make tacos with a little pico, and have myself a nice little dipping jus with it.
Nice.
Actually, right now the birria is something I've been experimenting with quite a bit. Like, I've done it a few times just with whole venison shoulder, just basically lop the hoof, lop it off the knuckle just above the hoof, put the whole thing in a hotel pan and just let it go, and it comes out phenomenal.
Wow.
And then also, from a teaching standpoint, it's definitely a fun cooking method to include people up, bring them to the flat top, and actually have them cook off their own tortillas and get that experience of working with that piece of equipment. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great group meal for that, for sure. But but yeah,
have you done any full hog roasts before? I mean, or cooking where it's like you got throwing on a table and everyone's just kind of picking off their own?
I did one like before I actually knew what I was doing. There was a restaurant in my hometown that would do like a wild hog cook off, and my buddies and I became friends with the owner, and if we helped him with his whole hog day, we didn't have a bar tab for the day, kind of deal.
Nice. Nice.
So so we went out.
Which that could actually hurt the end product potentially.
Well, exactly. I mean, don't give two like 24-year-old guys an unlimited bar tab.
Come on in at 9, boys.
It's 6 a.m. type deal. It didn't bode well. but no, that's been my only whole hog experience. But from that, I mean, I did learn a lot as far as the prep of the hog beforehand, because obviously we had not started the open tab before with the prep, and I think that was the real work of it. So I did learn how to like go in and like cut the ribs and inject and different injection blends and that sort of stuff. So it was pretty cool. It's something I've always been intrigued by. The times I've had it, like you go out to South Carolina and you get it with like the crispy skin, but it's so tender and juicy in the middle, and the vinegar sauce. I'm like, I got to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole thing, right? Like you're investing into a vessel that is good for cooking a hog, and that's about it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so with that said, I haven't personally done one to that capacity, but I have taken some little guys
Uh-huh.
out in Texas, and it started out with, oh yeah, this guy will fit on my smoker, and then by the time it was all said and done, I think I ended up parting it out and grinding, and
Yeah.
but the plan was always there, and I know one day I'm going to bring that to fruition.
Nice. Well, you have to call me when you do. I've got
Yeah.
my smoker now that I have. I've got this whole last season where there's hogs on camera all the time, and I couldn't wait to go and get one. And then, of course, whenever it came to them stepping out, it was always a 190 or 200-pound hog, and I'm like, I cannot fit that. And I could probably, I can get a shoulder or a leg on there, but I really have been waiting for that, 50-pounder that I can be able to do that. So my goal this year, it's one of those, is I want to get the whole thing on the smoker and do it that way. And we'll have to see how that works out. But that's one of the goals there.
Yeah, actually, the first hog hunt I did, um, I was out near Abilene, and we walked up on this tank, and there were like all these hogs, and I'm like, oh man, look at them, and I just opened up, and boy, the ground shrinkage I had when I walked up on them. They were about that big. I could have sworn they were just massive hogs.
They could have eaten you alive. Their tusks were this long.
Yeah. The teeth, and yeah, they were like this. I'm like, boy, all right.
That's not what I had planned. Yeah.
I don't look so cool now.
Hey, but it'll fit on the smoker. So there you go.
Yeah. And actually, with that one, I think we ended up cooking most of those at the ranch, just quartering them up.
Yeah.
Almost like cooking chicken quarters. We just seasoned them up and just had them on the grill like that. Came out really good.
Yeah, I've done a few like that. For the first time I ever cooked for my now wife, I think we were dating at the time, and I forgot exactly even how I did it, but I did it on the grill, and I just remember I think I finished it in some kind of sauce, but it was the best thing. It was the best pulled pork I've ever made, which there may be even asterisks there. I've had some good ones that I've made, but I was like, wow. And of course, there's no time or rhyme or reason of like exactly what I did, but it's something I've been working on recreating. And so I got a couple shoulders, got a couple of legs and things I'm going to be trying this year. But I'm definitely always down to learn. So I might be hitting you up on some ideas for some recipes.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, I will definitely. I'm always open to good suggestions and trying different things out. So, before we leave, I did have two last questions. One is about your legacy. I want to know, in your professional and your personal, life, what is it that you look at as your legacy and what you want to be remembered as, and for your contributions, and just kind of maybe, if you want to dive into those together or, as separate, however it is you see that, but, talk to me about your legacy.
Wow, that's a big question.
It is. Save it for the end.
Yeah. I'm like, I ultimately, I just would like to be known as an advocate that made the outdoors approachable. Someone that was willing to share my knowledge with anyone who asked. I there's definitely truth in the statement, knowledge is power. And, as I think of how much my access to the outdoors has changed just by the shifting of those that are entering hunting behind me. I mean, so 10 years from now, who's going to pick up this torch? Right?
Yeah.
20 years from now, so yeah, I hope to leave behind a bank of knowledge that and share enough a bank of knowledge that makes people curious to explore it for themselves.
Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, wow, man, how do you answer that question and not sound arrogant? You know,
It's a tough one, man. I haven't been asked that one myself yet on any podcast, and I haven't even put the thought into. So it's a tough one. It's I think that I've heard a variety of answers because I've thought that that's an interesting question just to get people's mindset. But like
yeah,
I think like you're talking about like being able to be able to help facilitate that next person or that next generation or whatever it is that you're learning and make things a little bit better, or, make things accessible. Obviously you're teaching and you're leaving so much, I think you look at like your courses, right? Someone comes in there, you have then taught them, you've empowered them with some bit of knowledge, which they can springboard and learn more of. But until you've maybe opened that door, they didn't even know there was a door to open. Or that you're just showing them a few colors. Like someone was talking about the other day, like the idea of like the crayon box. It's like they might have thought they had 8 crayon colors to work with, and all of a sudden you've opened it up and you got that 164. And like, whoa! And it's like, yeah, you guys don't even know there's a 256 box yet. But like, like whatever it is, like you have this, you're opening up a love that will then it could be exponential. They could be showing their friends and their family and teaching them all the things they've learned from you. So you might not even ever know that extent of what you've done and how you've helped empower and change and enrich and have maybe introduce people to the outdoors, some wildlife standpoint. You might be helping to inspire future photographers or videographers in the outdoors or conservationists. You just don't even know what you've done, but by you doing and by you sharing, you're helping create that potential legacy that could be, exponential. So
exactly.
You don't know really, right?
Yeah.
You can only hope that you've, inspired. And I think you've done a lot of that. So I think that
thank you.
That's a wonderful thing. I mean, I know I'm excited for people to learn more about what you're doing, get involved in your courses, follow you. And I guess that, let's go ahead and tell people, where can they follow you? How can someone sign up for one of your courses, one of your classes, if that's something they want to do? Where are you posting about? How can those folks come and be a part of this journey?
So for right now, the best way to follow me is either on Instagram at Tagged Out Kitchen or on my webpage at taggedoutKitchen.com. As I have events open up that are available for sign up, and not so much of the private corporate stuff, but as I have events that I'm booking, that I'm opening up for sign up, they'll definitely be posted about either on Instagram or on my personal webpage. So,
cool, man.
Anything I'm doing is going up there, and we'll also have a little more comprehensive photo spread of the buffalo processing.
Awesome.
If that interests you.
Yes. Should interest everybody. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a story that's a story that's currently in the works right now. So
great.
by time this plays, it'll probably be old news, but
that's something everyone will have to go and revisit. Even so, when you sent me the picture of that thing hanging and you're next to it, and you're not a small man, and like it's not this. It's like one of my friends is like, is that a photographic, kind of trick? And I'm like, I do not believe so. I was like, look at that again. That is a massive animal.
Yeah,
it's massive.
And actually the head's like down to it's so big. I'm like, the head's right there too.
Yes, I was showing my little one that last night too, and she's like, wow, it's big. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, no,
what a challenge.
Yeah, definitely what a challenge. It was a lot of fun. I have got some reports back that the inside tenders were a little tough.
I can imagine. It was a very, very old animal, but it's what do you come to expect,
Exactly.
Well, but, Lance, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I love watching your journey, and just kind of, I cannot wait to get to one of the events. I know I couldn't make it the last time there through. My buddy, our mutual friend, Michael Sabat, told me all the wonderful things and kind of sent me pictures throughout it. So I was extremely jealous, and it just made me look forward to the next time. So looking forward to having that experience to you. Everyone go visit Tagged Out Kitchen, follow Lance. And Lance, once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, George. My pleasure.
All right. You take care, man.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.